When you hear Dark Ages, what comes to mind? Chaos, ignorance, and suffering? A time when science vanished, people never bathed, and life expectancy was brutally short? Well, here's the truth. That image is mostly a myth. Yes, life was tough, but it wasn't all doom and gloom. In fact, this era saw scientific progress, cultural advancements, and even early forms of medicine and education. So, why do we still call it dark? Let's break it down and uncover what really happened. But before we continue, make sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. With that said, let's get started. Stick around because you might be surprised at just how misunderstood this period really is. One of the biggest misconceptions about the Dark Ages is that there was no scientific or intellectual progress. Some believe that knowledge was completely lost and that people abandoned learning. However, this is not true. Many discoveries and advancements were made during this time. For example, in monasteries, monks carefully copied and preserved important books, including scientific texts from ancient Greece and Rome. They studied medicine, astronomy, and agriculture. Even though Europe faced many challenges, knowledge did not disappear. In fact, universities started to emerge in the later part of the medieval period, leading to the Renaissance. In the Islamic world, which was connected to Europe, scholars made huge contributions to science, mathematics, and medicine. They translated Greek and Roman texts into Arabic, which later helped European scholars rediscover this knowledge. If the Dark Ages were truly dark, these achievements would not have been possible. Another common myth is that women had no rights and were treated poorly in the Dark Ages. While it is true that women did not have the same freedoms as men, they were not completely powerless. In many places, women could own land, run businesses, and even inherit wealth. For example, in some medieval societies, women worked as doctors, writers, and merchants. They also played an important role in agriculture and craftsmanship. There were even some powerful female rulers, such as Eleanor of Aquitaine, who had great influence in European politics. Imagine a woman named Margaret living in the Dark Ages. She might be a skilled weaver, selling clothes in the local market. She could own her own shop and train apprentices. While she still faced limitations, she was not completely without rights or opportunities. Some believe that people in the Dark Ages were much shorter than modern humans. This idea comes from the fact that some medieval doorways and furniture seem small. However, studies of medieval skeletons show that people were about the same height as today's average person. So why were doors so small? The answer is simple. They helped keep buildings warm. Large doorways and windows allowed too much cold air to enter. By keeping openings small, people could better manage indoor temperatures. A popular belief is that medieval people never bathed and were always dirty. This is not true. While they did not have modern showers, people still washed regularly. Many towns had public bathhouses where people could clean themselves. Wealthier individuals even had their own bathtubs. Archaeologists have found medieval combs, toothbrushes, and even soap recipes. People cared about their appearance and hygiene. However, because clean water was sometimes hard to find, not everyone could bathe every day. Some people believe that medieval people only drank beer and wine because water was always dirty. While beer and wine were common, especially in towns, people still drank water. They knew that water from certain sources was unsafe, but they also had wells and fresh springs. Imagine a village where the people carefully choose where to get their water. They avoid dirty ponds, but drink from a well that has been in use for generations. While they may not understand bacteria the way we do today, they knew enough to be careful. The dawn of a new era. When we look closely at the historical evidence, particularly the artistic and architectural achievements that survive from this period, we see not darkness but light, not destruction but creation, not ignorance but innovation. This was a time when new forms of artistic expression emerged, when architecture evolved to serve new purposes, and when different cultural traditions merged to create something entirely new. The secret language of faith. Imagine yourself in ancient Pompeii, the year 79 AD. As you walk through the ash-covered streets, you might notice something peculiar etched into the walls of certain houses. A mysterious square of letters, ROTASOPERATENETAREPOSATOR. To the uninitiated, It appears to be nothing more than a word puzzle, a curious piece of graffiti. But hidden within these seemingly random letters lies one of the earliest examples of Christian ingenuity. These rhodas squares, found scattered across the Roman Empire from Syria to Britain, were more than mere word games. They were sophisticated codes, early witnesses to a faith that would transform the world. Rearrange these letters, and they form a cross-reading Pater Noster, Our Father, with the letters A and O, Alpha and Omega, remaining. In these simple squares, we see the first flickerings of an artistic tradition that would define the coming ages, one of mystery, symbolism, and hidden meanings. The brilliance of barbarians. Perhaps nothing better illustrates the misconceptions about the Dark Ages than the story of the so-called barbarians. The very word barbarian comes from the Greek term for someone whose language you couldn't understand. It was basically an ancient way of saying foreigner. But these peoples, the Huns, the Vandals, the Goths, were far from the primitive savages of popular imagination. Take the Huns, often portrayed as the most fearsome of all barbarian peoples. Their artistic legacy tells a different story. They were master craftsmen who created exquisite golden jewelry, often incorporating sophisticated animal imagery that showed a deep connection to the natural world. Their horse ornaments, studded with precious stones, reveal not just wealth but refined aesthetic sensibility. Even their notorious practice of skull deformation speaks to a complex culture with distinct customs and beliefs. The Vandal Renaissance. The Vandals, whose name has become synonymous with mindless destruction, were in fact sophisticated patrons of the arts. When they established themselves in North Africa, they didn't destroy Carthage. They enhanced it. Under Vandal rule, the city became a center of poetry and literature. King Thrasimund built magnificent new baths that inspired poets to write verses about the harmony of fire and water. The Julius Mosaic, one of the masterpieces of the period, shows us a world of refined luxury and sophisticated living that challenges everything we think we know about vandalism. The Gothic Light. But perhaps the most remarkable story is that of the Goths, particularly the Ostrogoths under Theodoric the Great. In Ravenna, their capital, they created some of the most stunning artistic achievements of the era. The mosaics of Sant'Apollinare Nuovo, with their processions of martyrs and unspoiled women, remain among the most spectacular artistic achievements of any age. The Ostrogoths even produced the Silver Bible, a magnificent purple-page manuscript written in the Gothic language, evidence that these barbarians had their own sophisticated literary tradition. Theodoric's mausoleum in Ravenna stands as a symbol of Gothic architectural innovation. Its roof, made from a single piece of Istrian stone weighing 300 tons, required extraordinary engineering skill to transport and install. Originally decorated with silver stars around a cross, it created the effect of a starlit sky, hardly the work of uncultured barbarians. A world of cultural exchange. What emerges from this exploration is not a dark age, but an era of remarkable cultural exchange and innovation. Christian artists borrowed freely from pagan traditions, the halo from Apollo, the image of Mary and Jesus from Isis and Horus, the architectural forms from Roman civic buildings. The barbarian peoples brought their own artistic traditions, creating new synthetic styles that would influence European art for centuries to come. The Dark Ages saw the development of new artistic techniques, new architectural forms, and new ways of expressing spiritual and cultural ideas. The period witnessed the creation of some of the most spectacular mosaics ever made, the development of innovative architectural solutions, and the creation of magnificent manuscripts and metalwork. The power of perspectives. Why then do we call this period the Dark Ages? The term itself reveals more about those who coined it, Renaissance scholars, who viewed their own era as a rebirth of classical learning, than about the period itself. They saw the medieval period through the lens of their own classical prejudices, missing the unique achievements and innovations of these centuries. The art and architecture that survive from this period tell a different story. They speak of sophistication, innovation, and cultural exchange. They reveal communities grappling with profound ideas and expressing them in new and creative ways. They show us peoples moving across Europe, bringing their skills and traditions with them, creating new syntheses of style and technique. Next, many people believe that the average person in the Dark Ages only lived to be around 30 years old. While this is partly true, it is misleading. The average life expectancy was low because many children did not survive infancy. High infant mortality brought the numbers down. However, if a person survived childhood, they had a good chance of living into their 50s or 60s. Many kings, queens, and scholars lived long lives just like today. Many think that medieval Europe was made up only of white people. However, this is not true. Trade routes connected Europe to Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. People from different cultures traveled, settled, and worked together. Archaeological evidence shows that people of African, Middle Eastern, and Asian descent lived in Europe during the medieval period. For example, historical records from England mention African individuals living in cities like London. Traders from the Middle East brought spices, fabrics, and knowledge to European markets. The world was more connected than we often think. The Dark Ages were challenging, but they were not a time of total ignorance or suffering. There was still learning, trade, diversity, and even hygiene. People were not as short-lived or as dirty as myths suggest. Women had more rights than commonly believed, and scientific progress could even if slowly. So, were the Dark Ages really dark? Not entirely. They were a difficult time, but they also laid the foundation for the world we live in today. Understanding the truth about history helps us appreciate how human societies grow and change over time. Next time you hear someone say the Dark Ages were completely terrible, you can tell them that history is always more complex than it seems. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating content about science and history. Thanks for watching.